I'd like to call to order the Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, August 15th, a hair after 7 o'clock. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody's singing. Oops.
Just a little disconnected today, so sorry. All right, let's start with a roll call.
Supervisor Mark Hain.
Here.
Supervisor Derek Daniil.
Here.
Chairman Dan Wolfel.
Here.
Supervisor Linda Wade.
Here.
Supervisor Jeannie Vogel.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum. Let's find out who's in our audience. We give you the first opportunity to introduce yourself to the camera.
Ashley Stotts, Sevastopol, EMR.
Here we are. Feel free to speak up, Nancy. There you go.
Tim Fleer, Miles Town, Associated Printer.
You.
Scott Lang, resident, 6417 Lakeshore Street, Roland.
Brenda Lane, Second Justice.
Together?
Hugh Zettel, 3986 Glidden Drive.
Front row.
Jim Mitchie, resident.
All right. And we have our two videographers over there, if they'd like to give the audience the benefit of whom they are. All right.
Glidden Drive.
Good to go. Welcome, thank you. Appreciate your being here. Anyone wishing to speak under public participation on something that's not on our agenda, please feel free to.
I would.
You would?
Yes.
All right, in that case, we'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Dan. Good to see you again. I've been traveling a lot. I've been be the fixture I've been. My name is Jim Mitchie. I reside full-time at 4159 Bayshore Drive in Sturgeon Bay. I expect you are aware that the plat for a 27-lot development on the edge of the Leatham Smith Quarry is up for approval at the Door County Resource Planning Committee this Thursday, August 18. As far as I know, the Town Planning Committee or supervisors have not voiced any position on this development, as is their prerogative. The Land Use Services Report, Door County Land Use Services Report to the RPC did make public something that the residents have known in the quarry vicinity for some time now. The exciting news, and the exciting news for Sevastopol, is that peregrine falcons, an endangered species in Wisconsin, are nesting on the quarry bluff wall. One of the recommended conditions from DCLUS is that no residential development or major construction will be allowed from March 15th to July 10 of each year for the whole, basically the whole area of the quarry, so that the nests are not disturbed. I think that these beautiful birds are snowbirds, but I'm not exactly sure. Perhaps Sevastopol should rename its sports teams from the Pioneers to the Falcons. We have more Falcons than I think we have Pioneers in Sevastopol now. This beautiful falcon is the world's fastest animal, and it's great to have them as our neighbors and residents. Right now, what the town, county, DNR, the state, the federal Fish and Wildlife, and other federal agencies' endangered species protection regulations and responsibilities are is not very clear. Perhaps we'll learn something more at the RPC meeting on Thursday. Hopefully our government will have the wisdom, drive, and courage to protect the quarry falcons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I don't know who the individual was that managed to find a pair of nesting peregrine falcons, but I'm sure that you're pleased that they appeared there. They are endangered, at least I understand that. So.
Two people in attendance here, in fact, were complaining to me that they're noisy at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
5 o'clock in the morning.
I only know them from where they raised them in Milwaukee and I think at WPS in Green Bay were the two places they had nested on an annual or perennial basis, so.
When I worked downtown Milwaukee at the US Bank building, they were nesting on that building. So maybe they like urban areas, I don't know. Downtown Milwaukee didn't seem to bother them too much.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. All right, then let's move on to this evening's agenda, and I assume it was properly noticed?
The agenda was properly noticed.
That's good news. How about a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda as noticed.
Motion by Linda, second by,
I'll second that.
what a shocker, second by Jeannie. Any changes? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Adopt the agenda. Approval of minutes, Board of Supervisors meeting from July 18th. We've had a chance to take a look at those in advance. If there's no changes or discussion, a motion to approve would be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting from July 18th, 2022.
Second.
There we go. In sequence, thank you. Mark and Derek. Motion to approve and accept those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion approved. Pending business, emergency medical responders. Got to catch up with myself here. When we last left this topic a month ago, there were some questions with respect to where the EMRs stood, whether they were considered a standing committee, whether they were independent agencies. There were conflicting resolutions out there that were generated back to 2002 by the former chairman. And we just had a lot of questions that needed some answering. So I had an opportunity to sit down with our town attorney and try and get an understanding of where we need to go with this and what is the proper procedure and how we treat the EMRs. And in that process, they came back to us and basically said that from their perspective, they are town employees, that even though the resolution from 2002 say they are an independent agency, they have been in fact treated as town employees since that time. As part of the justification or consideration for determining that they should be treated as town employees is that since their inception, they have been given W-2s versus 1099s, which are used for contractors. We would not pass the IRS test to determine that they are contractors versus employees. The town uses our town funds to pay for their training, pay for their calls, the calls they make. We pay for their supplies, and we pay for their insurance. And up till now, we have been paying for their workers' compensation coverage. And at last month's meeting, we discovered and confirmed that they had been operating since their inception without any liability coverage. So the town will now start providing liability coverage for them. And in a minute, I'll bounce that back to Amy to tell us the details. But so we therefore are paying not only for their workers' comp, but we will now start to pay for their liability coverage as well. They also make decisions to hire people, staff, other EMRs on behalf of the town. So the gist of the conversation that we had with the attorney was that they are, in fact, town employees, and that we, as a town board, need to revise the resolution from 2002, correct it, and then clarify it with the status of the EMRs. And the steps that we would hope to achieve is we would create a 2-person or maybe 3-person committee consisting of 1 or 2 town board supervisors and the EMR crew chief, which in this case would be Ashley Stotts. And the focus of that committee would be to provide oversight to the EMRs, to provide better communication with the town board, set expectations in terms of training and other things, also to better understand their funding requirements. Each year at budget time, we set aside funds in order to maintain the EMR group, supplies, whatever training and calls might be required. And so we would look forward to the periodic feedback from the town board member back to the board in terms of what's transpired, what steps have been taken. So that's the conclusion that was reached by our attorneys. And I guess what I'd like to do is open it up for anyone that might have some discussion or questions with respect to that. You've had a chance to look at the details. So if somebody wants to speak up, feel free to do so.
I'll start. Do you think 3 people will be enough on the committee? Is this gonna be like one of our normal committees where they meet and go over, do the budgeting and?
No, thanks for that. What Amy Sullivan, our town attorney, is suggesting is that we just limit it to a either 2 or 3 person committee, that Ashley's role would be to work with the EMRs. The EMRs would be a subgroup, but not an official town committee. The only person would be Ashley representing them. Because we have issues with HIPAA, we have other issues about open meeting laws, by leaving them as a standalone group, they can form their own bylaws, they can form their own structure underneath her guidance with whomever, from the town. And thereby eliminating the need to post for open meetings and everything else. We would still have expectations that we would get feedback or minutes or whatever at a town level, but they would avoid having to deal with those issues as a group of EMRs. So that was, thank you for catching that, because I forgot it. So, anything else with respect to that?
No, okay.
Jeannie, anything?
No, it's clear.
Linda, how about you?
I'm okay with the proposed resolution that's before us this evening. The points that you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, about, maintaining rules and regulations, and especially hiring personnel, because if we hire anybody else from the town, we do a background check and, make a thorough check of it. And, of course, the liability coverage, very important, even though you might have that Good Samaritan thing. But since they would be considered an employee of the town, they will get a W-2, and that means filling out the appropriate paperwork in order to get paid. I'm really okay with this resolution that Amy Sullivan drafted.
I'll just as an FYI, I'll hold on the resolution for a little bit, because I will step through and read it.
I have one more comment,
Sure.
too. I think I don't know if it's in the bylaws, or maybe it was just an unwritten policy, that any first responder responding to a call using their own personal vehicle must have an umbrella rider or declaration to make sure that you're covered.
I think it's either 500,000 or $1 million.
Yeah.
Base
I mean,
amount.
most auto insurance, your policy does provide for at least 500,000, most of them are $1 million. But that was another point that we should make, that.
Okay.
And you can incorporate that into your bylaws, actually, I would imagine.
Anything else, Linda?
I don't think so.
Derek?
No, committee sounds good. We're gonna talk about the call numbers and percentages?
Well, I'd like to do is postpone those conversation until we establish the committee, and then sit down and have Ashley, and in this case, since you're the fortunate person that I know you're enthusiastic, we would appoint as the chairman of that committee. And then go through, because there's just been a lot of feedback to me about different things, and I guess I'd like to condense that list down and sit down yourself and Ashley and say, okay, what makes sense, what do we need to change, revise, update, or whatever, set some groundwork and kind of move forward from there. Before I just open it up to the floor, Amy, give us a little bit of the details with respect to the liability piece, if you would.
Absolutely. So I spoke with Jason Schofler, who is our representative from Rural Mutual Insurance. He stated that we had not have liability on the EMRs previously. He needed to find out some additional information from the town. I will need a copy of all the EMR's driver's license, which Ashley is undertaking. Jason did stress that only current employees that have filled out their W-4 and their Wisconsin withholding and I-9 forms are only considered employees. That being said, going forth, if there's a new EMR that is joining the committee, the process is, before going on any calls, you will need to have your paperwork filled out. If you do not, you will not get paid for that call, nor will you have work comp or liability insurance if you need it. It's no different from any employer. We just need to make a clear view of what is expected.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, you have any comments?
Can I just ask something real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I remember years back, there was, if you're on a committee, there was an hourly wage, like, ceiling that you can make per hour. Is that still in effect? Because this is their committee. Remember, there used to be, I remember back years ago, when
That
we
was
were on,
only for a town employee that,
it wasn't committee, I thought it was committee members could only make certain,
but remember, they won't be a committee.
they won't be the,
Right, Ashley would be the committee.
so Ashley can't make very much money. Good, sounds good.
But put
Okay.
it this way, we have to come back to the conversation about compensation in general.
Yeah,
And we have to address it from park employees as well as everything, and it needs to be updated, and I didn't put it on this month's agenda, but it'll be on next month's agenda. So we'll do committee updates, and we'll start talking about compensation, because we need to do that for our budget in October. So we will come back and revisit it, because I know she made a request earlier, and our typical time frame, as you know, is October for next year, so we will address it then. But it's a good point, so.
Also, to timely submit those reimbursement forms timely, which we even had in our resolution back in 2006, to,
Well, there's no
like
question.
quarterly or
Yeah, that-
whatever.
So, Ashley, I'll give you a chance if there's any questions or thoughts that you have as well as in this process.
So one thing, the committee sounds good.
Okay.
One thing I would like to see is, it'd be myself or one of our senior or officer staff per se of the group that presents to the whole board. So whether that means we come to the come to the monthly meetings or however, no disrespect to any of the board members, but if you don't have a medical background and you're trying to portray a message, it might not be might not be intentional, but the message you're portraying may be a little different than what our actual goals are, just because of the background and the knowledge that we have on the topic. So I prefer that those communications to the board as a whole come from within the group.
And we can evaluate what's the best structure there, whether we do it monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly. Of course, we'll do an annual no matter what.
Correct.
And we can schedule some interims depending on, what's happening and the need to do so. So, no problem with that. So, okay. Anything else that comes to mind? Okay. Anything else from,
I guess my one question would be,
just one?
well, okay.
I'm holding you to it, that's
Say
all.
one. Because the EMR group today has a hiring process for a town employee, it will need that the oversight committee then is involved in the actual hiring of said employee, which is not something that historically has been done. So that's a change, but it's an appropriate change because then it follows the precedents needed for hiring an employee.
Correct. And since you were an independent agency before, or at least thought you were. Yes.
So my question is that's what I think you're intending by having an oversight committee.
Correct.
Okay.
Communication, oversight, expectations, funding.
Yeah.
Because every year, somebody would come in and say, we need X, this, that, whatever, and so that we can make appropriate budget adjustments. So, okay. All right. Maybe instead of waiting, I will do the resolution now. And I was looking forward to reading these. Pardon me?
the one that's on our packet's got some
Yes.
grammatical errors.
Correct. So this is, I forgot the number. What would this be? 2006,
2206.
thank you. 2002-06 Town Resolution, and this is creating a First Responders Committee. Whereas the Town of Sevastopol previously resolved pursuant to Resolution 02-02TB to recognize the Sevastopol First Responders as an agency of the Town of Sevastopol, but not to form a committee nor directly employ members of the Sevastopol First Responders as employees of the Town of Sevastopol. And whereas the Town
Board of Sevastopol has now determined that it would be beneficial to have a First Responders Committee reviewing, dealing with, and making recommendations regarding the use of the Sevastopol First Responders as an agency to enhance the initial response to an emergency call located within the town of Sevastopol. And whereas the town of Sevastopol determines that it is in the best interest of the town of Sevastopol and the citizens to have a First Responders Committee dealing with the town of Sevastopol's first responders matters and report to the Town Board of Supervisors. Now therefore, be it resolved that resolution number 02-02TB is rescinded. Now therefore, be it further resolved that the Town Board of Supervisors of the Town of Sevastopol, Door County, Wisconsin, does hereby create a First Responders Committee to consist of a crew chief of the Sevastopol First Responders and 1 or 2 town supervisors appointed by the town chairman. It shall be the function of the town's First Responder Committee, among other matters, as determined appropriate. Maintain a current copy of the bylaws, rules, and regulations of the first responders. Review and approve any proposed changes in the bylaws of the first responders. Review the hiring of emergency medical responders by the Sevastopol First Responders. Oversee the licensing, insurance training, and ensure compliance with applicable laws. Report informational updates from the Sevastopol First Responders to the Town Board on a quarterly basis, predetermined apparently. Act consistent with the Town Board requests as to other matters involving the Sevastopol First Responders. The Town Board of Supervisors of the Town of Sevastopol does hereby continue to recognize the first responders as an agency of the Town of Sevastopol. The members of the Sevastopol First Responders shall be considered employees of the Town of Sevastopol. The Town Board shall continue to work with the Sevastopol First Responders to assist and support their service to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. This resolution is effective immediately upon approval by the Town Board. It is introduced and adopted at the meeting of the Town Board of Supervisors, Town of Sevastopol, on this day, August 2022, and it was submitted by me. So, anyone have any questions with respect to this lengthy document? And if anyone has any, if not, then we would need a motion to approve, and it's a roll call vote. Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You've used 2 different terms. In one point in the agenda, you call them emergency medical responders, and in this resolution, you call it the Sevastopol First Responders. Is there a reason for the use of that term?
Off the top of my head, I don't see it in there.
In your resolution, you were consistent with Sevastopol First Responders.
That's true in the letter from the attorney as well.
Right?
I'm just asking to make sure that that is the correct intention in terms of title.
Oh, no,
It
that-
should actually be EMR, as recognized by the state. First responder was a very old term that's not recognized anymore.
Okay, this came from the attorney, so if we need to revise Sevastopol First Responders to emergency medical
Responders.
response, okay. So let's make that change, and she'll certainly have no issue with that. So we'll get that resolution updated with the correct verbiage, but I think we could still go ahead and approve that tonight, and then the final copy that I will sign will have the correction.
Do we want that the Sevastopol Emergency Medical Responders or just the EMRs?
Sevastopol EMRs.
Okay.
No. Okay. Thanks for that catch.
The resolution from 2002 did say first responder.
And that's probably where she picked it up.
Then that's where she picked it up.
Yep. Okay. So a motion to approve resolution would be next step.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-06 by the town board creating First Responder Committee with the correction that the reference to first responders will be changed to EMRs.
All right, motion by Linda,
Second.
second by Mark.
Yeah, well, he got to her.
Okay. Motion by Linda, second by Mark. approve the resolution number 022-06TB, and it's a roll call vote, so Amy, if you would.
No,
Chairman
that's a-
Moffel?
That's a wrong number.
06, didn't I say?
You said TB, didn't you?
06 Town Board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Chairman Moffel?
Aye. Aye. Jeez. Oy, oy, oy.
Wait.
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Heen?
Aye.
Daniil?
Aye.
All right, motion carried, thank you. So how many things can we have changed on one document? All right, great. So, let's change the topic for a couple moments. Laddie, do you have the Gordon Road intersection? Can you flip that up? Okay, Gordon Road intersection, I'm going to assume that probably many of you are aware of the issues on Gordon Road, but for those of you who are not, we'll just try and touch on them briefly. Obviously, with all the development that's been happening on the highway, there has been an increase in accidents at that intersection. The town got engaged with the DOT a while back as we had development along the corridor in the old Muscat property, now known as Pioneer Corner, as well as other people who are interested in developing along that corridor. We did not have a lot of success with the DOT. We contacted the county, and Thad Ash pursued a grant under, I believe, using ARPA funds to see if the county could do some things. And the gist of it is that over time, none of us were making a lot of progress. And then Hugh Zettel, who represents part of the town as the county supervisor, came up with an interim idea, and I will let him share that with you. But the outputs of all of these efforts ended up at a meeting of the Highway and Safety Committee, of which Linda attended. And so I'll start with Linda and ask her to give her the updates of kind of what's happened there, and feel free to have Hugh add his comments, because he did spend a lot of time and effort to try and come up with a viable short-term solution. So, Linda?
Well, as our chairman indicated, that intersection has been on the radar for quite a few years now, just because it is a dangerous intersection, especially in the heavy tourist season. People traveling north wanting to turn left onto Gordon Road. There's been rear ends and everything else, collisions. And then people coming off of Gordon Road wanting to go north on the highway. There again, the visibility with steady traffic, it's been a dangerous intersection for years, as I said. And also our county board supervisor, Hugh Zettel, has met with the Highway Safety Committee to discuss options at this intersection. So the last meeting, which was held on Friday, August 12th, Thad Ash, our Door County Highway Commissioner, is recommending that not necessarily a permanent fix, but a temporary fix might be to, there would be no northerly turns off of Gordon Road. There would be signage and lanes, striping to indicate no left turns, and signage to force people to go up to the roundabout. And then, so in order to go north, you would have to go south 500 feet. And that's what roundabouts are for. It's to alleviate traffic congestion. So I'm certainly on board with that. Thad Ash estimated that to cost between $80,000 and $100,000. And he believes it'll go to the Finance Committee next at the county level, and then eventually to the entire county board. He believes that he could perhaps use capital improvement funds for that, or rescue it from some other type of project that he could delay for a while in order to get this accomplished now. He hopes that they would be able to do this by this fall. And his main point was to show that not only the town, but also the county is responding to the community, because we have these concerns with this traffic happening here. There have been 4 additional accidents, I believe, between their 2 meetings. And as far as fatalities, we're at a 0.6. We would need 2 more deaths to bring it to a 0.8 in order for the DOT to immediately address it. The long-term fix would be to get the DOT involved, perhaps rearrange that triangle section, maybe move it to the north. Of course, that may require acquiring some property from adjoining landowners, and again, using the roundabout. But he didn't expect that to happen for 4 to 6 years before the DOT would even look at that. Even though the DOT is going to pulverize and put down 2 inches of asphalt next year. That's just not on their agenda right now. So I think that was about that. Like our chairman said, he had tried to get a grant working with Joel Kitchens, but there was nothing available now. Our legislatures are well aware of this intersection. So assuming that the budget numbers can be arranged a little bit and they can do it for less than 100,000, like I said, it should be accomplished this fall. At least it's a good faith effort to show our community that we are trying to cure the situation.
Hugh, would you like to add any comments, since you were the guy that really dug in your heels and pushed this thing furthest?
Yes, I think it started with the daycare rezoning that the town approved, and through some of the recommendations by Supervisor Denila relative to slowing the speed limit and those things on Gordon Road as that proposed rezoning for the daycare center goes forward. And obviously this intersection was also raised as an ongoing concern. So I worked with Chief Deputy McCarty to get the accident information, and I don't know if you have that one, Laddie, to show that accident information, just to kind of give folks an overview of what we looked at from the past 8 or 9 years. Yeah, go one more. Yeah, the picture on the left will look familiar to you. There we go. Okay, picture on the left will look familiar to you because that is what appeared in the Pulse. So this was in the highway and facilities package that was reviewed last Wednesday. So you can see that over the period, the last 3 years, we've had 2x the number of accidents, and there has been 1 fatality already in 2015, but that seems to be forgotten. And then really the analysis here just shows that almost half the accidents occur when people are trying to turn left heading northbound on 4257, and the second most is vehicles trying to turn left onto Gordon Road from northbound 4257 to turn left to get their fill of custard and deep fried cheese curds. So those are the 2 largest areas or most prominent areas, and I presented this data kind of verbally. Also had great support from Supervisor Dale Vogel, who also represents town of Sevastopol, and I had great support also from Supervisor Roy Engelbert, who chairs the Highway Safety Commission. And then also Alexis Heim-Peter, who is also a supervisor, represents Sturgeon Bay area, but she also spoke, as you recall, as a board, as someone who was supporting the Door Community Daycare Center as a client, and also as a concerned parent. So we had some good support on the board to try to get this done. And then out of that, Thad Ash, the highway commissioner, basically said he would go forward and try to seek his own funds, since the state was not in a position to fund anything at that intersection. And I think the goal that we talked about as well was, number one is we want to put something in place as soon as possible. And what I suggested is these tubular delineators that are used in a lot of highways to move flow and to reorient flow, could be used as a measure until something more permanent could be done. And I think what Tad wanted to do something a little bit more substantial, so it is to put basically a raised kind of concrete island that would forces a right turn only and forces a right turn enough so that the cars that are trying to turn right are headed south, so they can't try to do a U-turn and go around the, the island. And so it would be part of his package. And part of that abutment then, or the island would move a little bit northward in the Gordon Road lane, if you will, so that it blocks the left turn lane. And it's exciting that he's actually going to try to get that funded and get that done this year, because I think one of the things that I was concerned about as well is we don't want to have the state go and ahead and do their resurfacing next year, which is scheduled, and then have to come in later and then tear up all that work to put an island in. That would be something that just wouldn't look good to our citizens relative to reworking all that work that's been done. So we'll have that. If that island goes through and can get done this year, that'd be great. Otherwise, I know the Finance Committee and Finance and Admin Committee are looking to see where they can shovel some funds for TAD to get that work done. Another important element that was discussed by the state at the Highway Safety Commission that I wanted to bring up, and it was brought up in the article in the Pulse as well, is about education relative to, trying to educate folks to turn right, to go south around the roundabout, to head north, just because it's safer than trying to, get lucky, if you will, and make that left turn. Another option also is to use Old Highway Road, and so I think that's one of the things that TAD talked about, is the proper signage to make sure that we can educate folks about using Old Highway Road or turning right to go north. So I'm excited that we were able to make this progress, and of course as the daycare center goes through its process of reviews and eventually to the RPC, hopefully we'll have something in place that will make that a little bit of a safer intersection with some of that traffic.
Great.
Hugh,
Go ahead.
question. Hugh, so you're still going, a person will still be able to make a left turn onto Gordon Road if they're traveling north? They can still make the left turn into.
Yes, that left turn will still go on, go on, and I think that is a designated truck traffic route.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm going to bring up to the Highway Safety Commission about if we can do some education relative to maybe adjusting that again to reduce risk at that intersection. And once that highway is resurfaced, according to Mason, who is the DOT rep at the Highway Safety Commission meeting, he said nothing will be done at that intersection from a design perspective probably for the next 10 to 12 years. When you look at it, when they'll do any kind of major construction work, there's culverts and other things that have been extended in the past, and they're going to have to do some major work there. Plus, that intersection north of Gordon Road there has some challenges with the right-of-way issues. So there's just a substantial amount of work. He mentioned he would try to, the state would obviously try to see if they could pull that in, but that once it's resurfaced, that's going to be a potentially long window before anything else substantial gets done from a redesign perspective. Although we encourage them to, or the resolution by the Highway Safety Commission was to have them look at potentially redesigning and putting in a roundabout there as a potential solution.
Part of the long-term fix to the out 4 to 6 years was moving the island and then adding a designated staging or turning lane clearly marked for those wishing to turn left onto
Like they did
Gordon.
at Utah.
And then the bypass, or the throughway lane on the other side.
Well, there's T in Utah.
12,000 cars a day go through there. The DOT said it's the highest traffic point in the county. The only other thing I'd add, and we have one more question over here, was I was pleased to see that the DOT approved the modification, the entrance for the Drosser Pioneer Corner, and stipulated that he put in a turn lane.
Oh.
So, which will make it even a little better for everybody concerned in that area. You had a question?
Okay, so if the county does get the funding to extend that out to make it not a left-hand turn, and that is put in this year, what prevents the state from destroying that next year when they do their, because obviously they had their plans last year or a couple years ago, what they were doing at that intersection, and if it's not on their plans, they could easily destroy it.
To that point, Commissioner Ash has been working with the state relative to that as a proposed solution. One of the big challenges was the state wasn't going to fund anything. And so all the work that the county would do has to get permits from the state. And the fact that Thad thinks he can get it done, just reflects the fact that he has been working with the state collaboratively to try to find an interim solution. So nothing will have to be torn up. And again, we'll have to have the permits from the state, since it's actually, part of it is in the state right away. So I envision, Tad, will have that in place, relative to getting that completed without, concern about it being torn up.
Yes.
A safer way in the meantime, if you're heading north to get to Gordon Road, is to turn on the roundabout into town and turn right on Old Highway Road. And you avoid having to sit there if you're turning, down the way and having cars trying to get around you, and you're avoiding all that.
Yeah,
And
and
that, for the
there's some
daycare, that would be
alternatives.
really
It's
good
all
too.
trying to get people in the loop to take those routes. Yeah, I agree with you. So, okay. Anyone else have any questions? If not, thanks you for your input and leadership on this. And the government's here to help, right? Sometimes, maybe not always. Okay. All right, let's move on. We recently had a board of review where citizens had an opportunity to come in and talk about their tax bill. And during that discussion, our representative from Associated Appraisal, Miles, was there. And we had a little bit of a discussion with respect to where we stood on revaluation on the town. And some interesting facts came about, which was the last time we had a revaluation was 16 years ago. So I'm sure that we're very current on everyone's values. And I know it makes me personally excited about the chance to pay a few more tax dollars. But it seems that the right course of action to take is to make a decision to do a reval. We've asked Miles tonight to answer any questions the board has, and we have some handouts there. There's a variety of alternatives. The way this works with the state is if your valuation gets out of sync, too far out of sync by 10%, you have to go back and do a reval. And what had happened over time since 2006 is we had the Great Recession. We had a lot of fluctuation in real estate values, and as it turned out, year after year, we just bounced within that number, not requiring us to spend the $150,000, $60,000, $70,000 to do a reval. So frankly, we passed on the opportunity. But we're now in a position where we have stepped out, and there's a calendar that steps in, a timetable that says you have to take the following actions within the following years. And so the bottom line is that the best and most appropriate course of action for us to take is to go about to do a revaluation in 2023. And the question that comes before the board tonight is there are a variety of choices with respect to that. And so we need to decide if in fact we are going to do that. I mean, at this point in time, would be a recommendation. And then to try and determine what might be the best vehicle to address the process. Hugh, would you hand Miles the mic so if he gets some questions, we can hear him back there? So I'm just going to start the conversation with the documents that you have before you this evening on Associated Appraisal. And they basically go through what I just tried to touch on. We have a variety of options from a full assessment, which would be interior and exterior, as well as an exterior evaluation, and obviously comes at different price points. The full inspection is $143,000. The exterior only is $126,000, and in addition to this, we still pay the appraisal firm a fee every year, approximately $20,000 for their normal services as they go about throughout the year. The note that we had from them said our 22 assessment will be the second year out of compliance with the Wisconsin statutes. And if we don't do this before 2026, the state will come in and do it for us. and of course, the state always operates as the lowest cost provider, so they'll only be 3 times what anyone else would pay to get an appraisal. And just as a matter of point of information, we had accrued, knowing that eventually we would do this, each year we put money into the budget. We had accrued $114,000, and Amy, refresh my memory, does that include this year's contribution yet?
It does not include this year's contribution, so
So
it
that
will be
would take us to what, 119?
Yes.
Okay.
5,000, okay.
So we basically have close to $120,000 that we have set aside for the reval. And of course, as I just mentioned, we're somewhere between 126 and 143, plus our normal expense to do that. And I think what I'll do is, Miles, why don't you kind of give us your spin on this, if you don't mind, and then we'll just go through the questions as they occur, okay?
Sure.
So why don't you take us through that process and where we should go?
Yeah, so obviously the purpose of the revaluation is to bring assessments back to market value, eliminate inequities throughout the municipality, and then get back into compliance with the Department of Revenue's equalized
Miles,
value.
pull the mic closer to you, we
Sorry.
can't hear.
Sure. Is that better?
What happened here, laddie?
Is it off?
I believe it's on. Is that better?
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, you guys
Hold it
You
closer.
might have to hold it.
Yeah, you might,
You might, yeah.
just don't break out in the song.
All right, I'll just hold it. So, yeah, the main difference between the exterior and the interior, obviously, is with an exterior, we're not trying to get into every property, into every home. With the interiors, if somebody isn't home, either way, interior, exterior, we'll leave a tag, let them know we're on the property. Interiors, what we do is we ask them to call us back, and we try to schedule a time to do a walkthrough of the interior with them that works for them. With the exterior, so if you see the interior PRC questionnaire section under optional add-on assessment services, the property record questionnaire is something that we provide that goes along with the exterior revaluation, and that's something that we would mail out at the beginning of the assessment process. It kind of gives the property owners a voice, let them participate in the process, and that's this sheet here with the property record questionnaire on the top. Kind of helps us learn things we don't know about the interior properties. And that is something that we would need to know at the beginning of the process if you guys decide to go with the exterior and you want to do the interior property record questionnaire. This other form that I provided that has our name at the top of it, and it says request to view property notice. That's a sample. And that would be mailed out approximately 2 weeks before we start visiting properties. Kind of gives a breakdown. Second paragraph breaks down what will happen so the property owners know what we'll be doing on their property. The third paragraph is kind of when we'll be there, and then how they would be able to identify us. And then the fourth paragraph is kind of the timeline of the entire assessment process that includes open book and border review. And then the final handout that I had that says Town of Sevastopol 2022 Market Update Revaluation. Again, this is just a sample of something that we provide, and this would be sent out with the actual assessment notices to the property owners. It's kind of an informational insert, help educate the property owners with the assessment process and answer some questions they might have. Provide some additional information as far as the open book, how that works, where they can find the assessment roll online, and then information on the Board of Review. As far as the actual revaluation, it's based on monthly basis, percentage billing based on what work is done during the month. You mentioned that you were looking at 2023, so at this point, if it was a 2023, it'd be billed in full per month. If you guys waited to do something in 2024, we'd be able to kind of spread the cost out. We could start field work at the end of 2023 and bill it for the end of the month or at the end of the year there based on what work we get done per month in 2023, and then spread out the rest of the additional cost over 2024 and potentially do a final payment in January of 2025 if you wanted to do it in 2024.
Okay. So if you're take me through the process. If you go to somebody's property, are you entitled to go onto that property? Does it require any special permission, or if someone says, stay off my property, you're basically history?
Correct. So as assessors, the trespassing laws don't apply to us as far as one visit per year. We're allowed to visit any property once per year.
Okay.
However, if a property owner calls and lets us that they prefer us to not be on the property, then we don't visit the property, as well as if somebody asks us to leave the property, we would leave the property.
Okay.
And then just to, I guess, touch base on what we would do at each property, always knock on the door first, and then explain what we're doing there. We update photos, verify all of our information as far as sketch of the house, take measurements, check on the outbuildings, make sure our record's up to date, basically. So.
If you did 2023, just from a timeline perspective, you would start January and you would try to get the field work done by?
So if we're doing 2023, the field work would probably start sometime in spring to summer.
Okay.
So the open book and border review would definitely be pushed back more in like the September, October timeframe is when it would be finalized.
Okay. Does the board have any questions with respect to these different options, feelings?
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Of course. If no one is home, can you walk around the property, the exterior, without?
We can, again, because as an assessor, you get one visit per year without the
All right.
trespassing laws.
And then my second question, does the state insist on, or do they, do they care about whether it's an exterior reval only, or are they more interested in a full evaluation with entry into the permit? They don't care one
No,
way or
it's
the
just
other?
as long as you're in compliance.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Anyone else from the board? How about our real estate agent, are we?
Retired.
We good? Okay, just checking. The only thing I questioned was inside the letter, that is the Town of Sevastopol Market Update Reval. I mean, you've already your letter says the overall increase should be. I think you might want to just change that, at least from a draft perspective, to decrease or increase. I mean, it presupposes a lot right off the bat, but.
Yeah, again, that's just a sample from another municipality.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just read it and I thought, wow, before we even get there, we've already increased it, so leave that portion blank.
Yeah, that's.
Bold type bill that.
Yes, in bold.
Yeah, and board, exactly.
I thought it was the first thing I thought. I thought, wow. Welcome and thank you to 2023.
I have a question now.
Yes.
What, if we decided to do a reval next year in 2023, what is our deadline for committing to you?
So we'd need to know that probably by the end of September.
Okay. Any discussion relative to your feelings?
I do, and Miles, chime in if you can. Is there any way we can set it up timeline-wise where we don't have a 2-month completion to timing of taxing? Like what Sturgeon Bay did?
I'm not sure I followed, Derek.
Because if you do the reval, and then the BOR would be in October,
Right.
it would essentially be on January's tax
Correct.
increase, so that it only gives you a 2-month notice of an increase.
Well, I think the issue in Sturgeon Bay, do you do the assessments or the work?
I am the assessor for Sturgeon Bay, but I wasn't during their revaluation. But
I think what happened there was it was a double hit. They did the revaluation, and at the same time, the school district in Sturgeon Bay had a referendum, which was approved.
Sure.
And so I think people got a double whammy. They got the reassessment and they got the referendum money. And I think that, from some people I know, that I think was the the major factor. I don't know otherwise.
Yeah, and so another thing too, with the revaluation, just because assessments are going up doesn't technically mean that your tax bill is going to increase.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's just a redistribution of the current tax levy, basically, from the prior year, more or less.
Your letter would say a decrease, Derek.
I hope so.
But typically, just to touch on the timeline, typically all of our revaluations, it gets finalized in the September, October timeframe. Might be able to get it done by August, but typically that's the timeframe we're looking at.
Okay.
You recall when we did the last Board of Review, Linda, in 2006,
2006?
7? I mean, that was pretty late in the, it was
Last
just before your,
assessment, not board review.
Yeah.
Last assessment,
I'm
not
sorry.
board review.
Yeah.
Revaluation.
Yeah, reval in
I think it
2006.
was 2006.
Yeah, and was it late? Do you remember when in the fall of that
I
year?
wanna
I don't recall
No,
myself.
I don't think it was cold out. I don't remember.
Okay, no big deal. Anyway, does that answer your question, Derek? Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Do you have any feelings that we should attempt to accomplish this in 2023?
Nancy has a question.
Sorry, Nancy?
I have just a comment. With inflation and, all the costs that people are incurring now and people are somewhat hurting. I don't know if you wanted to delay it or not, but I think it might hit some people hard.
I don't know that that's good feedback. I don't know whether I don't know what our thoughts are here. I mean, I think it's obvious we gotta do it.
We have to do it.
Right.
Whether we do it in 23 or 24, I mean, and we don't have to make that decision tonight. I'll say what we'll do is we'll just hold it over to next month. We'll let you know mid-September whether we're gonna do 23 or 24 and hold open the timeline.
Sure.
All right?
Would the price remain the same whether we decide in 2023 or 2024?
Yeah, this contract's technically good through 2026.
So that third bullet down where total cost, which includes personal property and mailings and all that, we're looking at $153,000, right?
Correct, and that's for the exterior.
That's for the exterior.
Yeah, so that's the total cost, and then if you wanted to add in that interior property record questionnaire, that would be an additional $5,400.
Oh, that would be in addition to that? So that
Yeah,
interior PRC questionnaire is an additional $5,400 no matter what?
Correct, because it would go along, it's an addition to the exterior evaluation, it's not required.
It's in that number.
It is.
Well, wait a minute. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maintenance, personal property, so 153, 225 plus 5,400.
If you want to do the questionnaire, correct.
Do we have to do the questionnaire?
You don't, it's just another option, another way for the property owners to get involved and for us to gain interior information knowledge if they reply to us.
It's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory, no.
What type of response would you typically get on something like that, Mel?
Yeah, so typically right now, on average, interior inspection, if we're doing full interior, our insurance rate is somewhere in like the 30 to 45%. Property record questionnaire is also around that range as far as what's getting returned to us.
Maybe you should do our broadband survey.
So would that be 60% then? Or so you get the 30% of ones you actually go to, 30% from the survey, or is it overlap? I mean, obviously there's gonna be some overlap, right?
Typically, the interior questionnaire isn't sent out for a full revaluation.
No, I mean, so like if they send the questionnaire back, are you still gonna go in on those, or if you get enough information from them, is that one you don't have to go?
So if it's just an exterior only, which is what the interior questionnaire would come along with, we wouldn't go into the interior of any home.
But no, but if we do the interior, we do the add-on, that's the interior questionnaire, correct? That was the interior questionnaire?
Right, but typically if you do the interior for evaluation, you wouldn't go ahead and do the interior property record questionnaire because it's already intended that we'd be going.
Oh, gotcha.
If we do the external, we wouldn't do it at all.
Right.
Right. Okay, in terms of what's up. All right. Anything else?
Well, and this property record questionnaire that I, as the homeowner, fill out, I mean, hopefully people are filling it out correctly, that I'm gonna put my houses in poor condition so it gets a low assessment.
Right, and it's not, we don't take it verbatim by any means. We definitely review it, and we're still gonna visit the property on the exterior, so if it's obvious that there's some discrepancies, we take that into account. We don't just enter the information that's provided, we review it.
Hugh?
Two quick education questions.
Sure.
Is this only residential properties, or is it all?
It's the entire municipality, so vacant land, farmland, commercial, anything. Yep.
So then one is the question I have is relative to the context of the revaluation. If I have a garage, and I just have a garage to store stuff, but my next door neighbor has a garage and uses it for auto repair, do you take the context of how the asset is used relative to the revaluation?
Yeah, if something is being used for a commercial purpose, it would be assessed as a commercial property.
How long's your neighbor been working in their garage?
Well, then this means then that what the town can do is provide the appraisers with the addresses of the homes that are operating in short-term rentals. Because clearly, that's not operating as a residential property, it's not just a house.
That came up at the
Came up at the border review.
Miles, can you,
Yep,
know what
so
he's referring?
So it's also a highest and best use issue. So for a residential property, the highest and best use would be for that property owner to sell it as a residential property, not as a rental business. When we're talking about something that's a single-family home.
They get a pass on it.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
That's
They
what he's
assess it
saying.
as a person, as a residence.
They get a pass.
Yeah, and I think, didn't you say, Miles, that the guidance has not come down from the state in any way, shape, or form with respect to dealing with STRs?
Yep, it's kind of in discussion right now all around with the assessors, yeah.
Okay. Something for you could work on, though, you.
Using assets that I already have.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have a comment? If not, we'll move on. Thank you for coming, Miles, and we'll get back to you next month.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We got one right here. All right. So we're up to the financial reports. And in your packet, you have the account balances as of July 31st, the budget versus actual, January through July, and you have the transaction list by date. And I'm sure that Amy has something that she'd like to add to that.
I do. We have received our August settlement from the county, and it's the appropriate amount. And we have also received the bill from the tennis pickleball courts, and it's come in under what we were expecting.
Thank goodness.
Something of good news? Okay.
Would that be for the asphalt, for what's completed today?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
They did not use extra gravel. That was the good news. Okay, anything else, Amy?
Nope, that's it.
All right, if not, there's no questions, motion to approve the financial reports.
I'll make that motion to approve the financial reports.
Motion by Derek, second by Mark to approve the financial reports for the month of July. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Good, carried. Okay, everybody's had a chance to look at and sign the vouchers, bills, and claims? And if so, then a motion to approve those would be in order.
I'll move to approve the vouchers, bills, and claims for the period July 19th through August 15th, 2022.
Motion by Linda, second by Jeannie. Approve the vouchers, claims, and bills. Any questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. All right. Commission minutes or committee minutes. We have the Park and Rec Committee minutes from June 22nd. And we have a copy of the Communications Technology Committee from June 29th. And we would need a motion to approve those and put them on file. And then if anyone has an oral committee report they'd like to make, we will do that. So,
I'll move to place those two sets of minutes, Communications and Technology and the Parks and Recs, on file.
all right, motion by Linda.
Second.
I think Derek squeezed it out.
Yeah.
Derek.
Okay.
Second by Derek. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one. All right, motion carried. Anyone wishing to speak relative to their committee, anything that you'd like to chat about for a moment?
Yes, I would.
Ms. Vogel?
I just wanted to speak to the folks tonight. Hopefully, there's a lot listening, or will listen at the recorded version. But so our committee, the Communications Technology Committee, will meet again on Wednesday. At that time, we will look again at the internet service providers, the 4 that we are vetting, and we will decide whether we will send a request for proposal to all of them or just some of them. But the greatest emphasis I want to make tonight is the importance of, I know, survey fatigue, but the importance of this latest survey. It's called the Wiser Survey. And so I'm just going to read to you what this involves, and hopefully if anyone has any questions or comments, they certainly feel free to contact me. My phone number is on our website. So, Door County has hired a broadband coordinator and established a broadband committee to help guide the deployment of fiber to the premises, FTTP, throughout Door County. In addition, your local municipality has a committee that is working at a local level. That, of course, would be our Communications and Technology Committee. We need all residents, property, and business owners to participate in this survey to show what internet services are in place in the county. It is projected to cost $140 million for fiber to the premises in Door County. It is critical for us to obtain as much federal and state funding as possible and not leave anyone behind. Every survey completed can help. 1, the state obtain more federal funding for fiber. 2, the county and municipalities qualify and apply for more state and federal grants to help pay for fiber to the premises. We need you to complete this short 10-minute survey that includes an internet speed test from your home or business, or both, at fibernetdoorcounty.org. If you do not have internet access available at your home or business, again, if you do not have internet access available at your home or business, please fill out the paper survey and report it to the address provided. The other thing that we're going to talk about and probably take action on Wednesday is doing another mailing. So our intent is probably to saturate doing a rural route mailing. It'll also be less expensive. It'll probably cover more addresses than just in Sevastopol, but that's all right. If we can do it more cheaply, that's good. So this survey, this paper form that you're seeing up on the screen now, and I'm just read to you, that's in my hand, it can be obtained here at the office for you. There is a phone number. If you do not have service from home, there's a phone number that you can call for assistance in filling out the survey. So, by all means, anyway, this survey is going to be put in a mailing, so keep your eyes posted for that, because don't just throw it in the trash, it's important, please. And again, the link is also on the Sevastopol Town website, so you can go there. We're trying to make this as painless as possible, and please, we got less than a 25% response from the Sevastopol survey we sent out for internet. This is extremely important. What's going to happen, as soon as the address is put in for your property with the speed test, a pin will drop on a map. And that means that the maps, the FCC maps, will be updated as they should be, because right now, as I said in here, the printed information, the maps are incorrect. They show a good share of our town, including other areas in the county that they say they're served by internet, but that is not true. So we have to make sure the maps get corrected so that we can do the best of getting funding that will be available to us. Yes, Nancy.
My husband filled out one Can I fill out one too, or is it the same household so you don't need to?
Well, you can.
I mean, does it matter?
No, it
No.
literally says online, when you go to it, it says you can fill out as many as you want, but once your address is in there, that address is.
It's kind of redundant.
Yeah, it
Okay,
doesn't.
so.
Yeah.
what
You know,
is-
like, if one or the other doesn't really understand what they're filling out, because it says on, I took it tonight, actually. It took me 3 minutes, and I have terrible service, so the 10 minutes I was kind of surprised by. They said it takes 10-minute survey.
Really slow.
Well, but if someone doesn't understand the technology, so maybe the other half does, maybe correct what he doesn't know, or she. Because a couple things on there I don't know, I didn't know a couple of things, and my download speed or whatever, I don't know.
You could do
If
a
you
speed
did,
test?
yeah.
I did have a speed test, but then it asked for how many gigs or whatever I pay for, I have no idea.
Oh, you don't know, okay.
I just pay the bill.
I'll parody Jeannie's comments, because I think the thing that may have escaped a lot of our attention is the fact that Bailey's Harbor is moving ahead with this. And their investment in a small town of Bailey's Harbor is over $5 million. So you can anticipate that at our town, that commitment, if we move ahead with it, is going to be more than $5 million and borrowed out over 10 and 15, 20 years, we don't know. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made, but the importance of the survey is the vehicle that we can go back to the PSC with and say, look, you have underrepresented our area in terms of throughput, and you should give us greater consideration for grants than you have given us in the past. We have applied for 2 grants in the past and have been denied twice. So with the proper input, maybe we can make the 3rd time part of the charm. And it's a huge investment if the town moves ahead with it. And so need to put it in that perspective. So
Kewaunee
thanks.
County just doing bug tussle. I heard that they're going to be over 90% served.
Yep.
with
Yeah,
this
they've
grant.
gotten their 3rd grant.
Yeah, 3rd grant.
Yeah, they did it as a county,
Yeah, it's a
Right.
county.
yes.
Come on, Hugh.
Okay.
That's not going to happen here.
Do you want anything from the visitor?
That's been made very clear.
Sure,
That's not
if you'd
going to
like.
happen.
Here, let me,
Door County.
Ms. Waite would like to discuss the Visitors Bureau a little bit.
Okay, Door County Tourism Zone, we meet, our next meeting is this Thursday, but from our last meeting, so as of August of this year, there are now 1,420 permits issued, compared with 1,338 permits last year. The majority of those new permits are short-term rentals, private homes, cabins, and such. And Airbnb has put out notice that if the property is continually getting disruptive parties or constant events such as wedding receptions or whatever, they would ban them from listing on the Airbnb website. So, just a reminder, on our town website, if something's going on at a short-term rental that isn't supposed to be going on, you can document that by just going to our website, and you can do it anonymous. So just a reminder there. Like I said, we'll learn more on Thursday. Destination Sturgeon Bay, I went to their meeting on July 27th. The Cherries Jubilee Art Street project, this auction, so if you've seen all the cherries around town, they all go up for auction. There is already a bid of $15,000 on one of those cherries. So some very fortuitous person has
Wood
put it.
orchards or what?
I don't know. But, I mean, it's a fundraiser, obviously, so good for them.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's right.
That's it? All
That's
right, we'll move on. We have a county board report from District 14 Supervisor Hugh, who just happens to be here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I sent out a note to the Madam Clerk with a summary of the activities over the last month of the county board. I'm just going to highlight a few of them in the interest of time. One is we looked at our first draft capital budget, and that was reviewed, and now we'll go through the process of doing detailed budget set up going in for 2023 and the next 5 years. Other major action at the county board meeting was the approval of the report for the amendment to the zoning map for the Drossett property, as well as approval of the amendment for rezoning, again, consistent with what was recommended by the town board, so that passed as well. Relative to the assigned committees that I work on, as the chair of the Broadband Committee, I just want to echo what Supervisor Will say about completing the WISER survey. It's important. I want to dispel a couple of things or misconceptions. One is if someone thinks they have broadband service, it's important to make sure you do the survey, especially if you even have satellite, because the satellite service in most of our areas here would be considered underserved in the way that they're looking at funding to meet the minimum of 25 megabit download and 3 megabit upload. And I was at one establishment having a few sodas where they have satellite broadband, and I won't name the name of the vendor, but I said you likely are considered underserved because that bandwidth and performance is so low, based on the Finley study where they captured some of that data. So please do that, and then more importantly, if you don't have internet access at your resident or business, to fill out the form to make sure we get our fair share of funding at the federal level. Because of the incorrect way that maps are produced. On average, I think in Antioch County, we are, the state suggests we're somewhere between 25 or 30% overstated relative to broadband access, and in some cases, in some areas, it's worse. So please do that survey at your earliest convenience. We also at the meeting got a first update as well as some of the WISER survey. So it's been out in the 9 days it's been out. There's been close to 460-ish responses, and out of that, basically 50% of respondents have speeds of less than 25 megabits per second. About 10% report that they don't have internet access at all. 97% of the respondents are home connections, so we have to make sure we reach out to all the businesses, especially in our community, to make sure we get them to report. One of the things that I stress in this position on the county board is making sure that we reduce the amount of rework and duplication of effort that's done from municipality to municipality. So I'm happy to report there's some tools that are going to be made available because of the county's participation in the New North consortium of counties in northeastern Wisconsin. And what the tools are that are available to use allow municipalities to basically take their address data and then be able to do what-if scenarios based on how many homes might get broadband, what the cost might be to do aerial versus underground, and do low ranges and high ranges to give you a range of estimates. So for Sevastopol, we can look at underserved and unserved areas in the interior of the county and actually get a range of estimates of what we think the actual cost might be. And typically these tools are roughly in the 90% accuracy range based on their use in other municipalities. So that'll help us do that. Plus, I know there's been a lot of discussion in the town about actually looking at the served areas to create some competition along the coasts, if you will, that have cable access with broadband. And again, we can isolate those areas as well and be able to look at those independently, again, to provide information to the board relative to looking at how that might look like for funding. So that's a tool I think we'll be able to talk about a little bit more at this Wednesday's meeting. But again, it's something to help us and all the municipalities get better information to make their decisions. In the Resource Planning Committee, there was a conditional use permit, obviously, for the analysis that was approved. Other activity, we talked about the Highway Safety Commission earlier. And then upcoming matters, I am a representative on the Resource Planning Committee. And Mr. Chairman, you already mentioned that there is going to be a preliminary plat review of the proposed Quarry Bluff Estates housing development. And just as a reminder, it's not a public hearing, but just a report on project status. So I will be attending that as a RPC member.
Moving back on here. License and permits. You have a copy of Door County Inspections work. As I understand it, Brett Timmy is extremely busy as we're still trying to work through the inspection for the Russia property. So we'll talk about that at another time. Moving to correspondence. Some of this might be repetitive to what Amy said. This is the Commissioner of Public Lands. These are the people that we borrowed some of the money from. Final approval came back. So all we have to do is tell them to send us some checks, which we will once we get the various bills. You also have a copy of some of the payments that the state has made to us. Exempt computer, municipal funding. We have video service. This is the cable TV delta when they reduced the amount of fees. We collected that back from the state. We also have a check for shared revenues of $6,800, and fire dues, another $25,000 approximately back from the state. In addition, you have a copy of a permit for some beach work that's going to be done on South Cave Point. And actually, I think that's completed already. I think this is an after-the-fact permit. Most of those are. And then the infamous Door County Child Care Services, the building on Cherry Road that's been vacant for 5 years?
At least.
More than
16, 12, 10?
It's finally reached the process that the county's foreclosing on it. So eventually something will happen with that structure. We don't know what, but Cherry Road seems to have its issues. I don't know why that is. But anyway, those are, that encompasses all the correspondence.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Going back to our loan from the Board of Commissioners.
Yes.
Did we get a schedule, Amy, so that you can put that in our budget file?
We haven't gotten one yet because they haven't sent me the funds.
Okay.
So I'm waiting on the funds. I did all the paperwork.
You can ask for an amortization schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think of that.
I can reach out to them tomorrow.
Yes, they will.
So it gets in our 2023 budget
Budget.
folder?
Yeah, with the appropriate room tax deal. All right.
Oh, that was another thing I was going to mention, the tourism zone. I don't know if Josh and Juliana, or just Juliana and maybe Denise, are going to be making visits to all the municipal clerks?
I did get an email that said that, yes.
Okay.
To bring like donuts and coffee, or what? Are they just going to?
Is she just going to give us an update on how things are going, or?
I believe so. I've been very inundated with the elections and everything else, so
Are we having another one?
pretty soon, I'll have absentees out by September 22nd.
Enough time to breathe.
So,
Okay.
Speaking of elections, excuse me, once again, I will say, your crew that you get in here, I mean, they're so pleasant and just.
I agree.
And I
Thank
know
you.
you had some issues, but thank you.
Yes.
you're very welcome. They do an
She
amazing
does get
job.
she certainly gets a full plate for those elections and corresponding after work, pre and post. So, thanks again. Okay, announcements. The Communication Technology Meeting is Wednesday, August 17th. If you have an agenda, it says 2 o'clock. That's an error. It's 10 a.m. So if you're going to attend that. The Valmy Threshery, hey, that's this weekend, August 19th through the 21st. You can go there and watch most of Amy's relatives with those hit and miss engines.
Absolutely.
They're pretty unique.
Yes.
Can't go wrong. I always enjoy that. We have a Park and Rec meeting Tuesday, August 23rd at 6 p.m. Next town board meeting will be September 19th at 7 p.m. And agendas for next month, I will bring back the reval. And I think I will also perhaps ask for an update on STR compliance. And I think what I'm looking for there, I think we've been pretty successful with the number of permitted properties, but I'm getting a sense that not everyone's complying with the requirements in terms of notification, parking, and some other things. So maybe there's a way to verify that through Granicus and see if there's some way we can dig into that a little bit. I'm not comfortable that everybody knows who's renting next door. So, at any rate, anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
On your note about compliance, I did get an email from someone who claims to live around someone who has an STR. And so I followed up with this gentleman, and what I did was I went out to the GIS map and put their address in, and then did a buffer of 200 feet around, and I sent that to him. I don't think people understand what 200-foot radius is, so I think that's one of the
Maybe
problems that
that's-
we're falling into.
Okay, because I have had people say they've not gotten any notification at all, and they know the neighbor's renting, and so we can touch on that.
And
Yes.
they seem to think that just because an adjacent parcel is vacant, that
don't
owner
have to
somehow
notify.
doesn't need a
Correct.
notification, but that's probably even more important, because if that person is listing that piece of property, they would want to know what's going on.
Maybe with the renewals, we'll send out a 200-foot tape.
Yeah, well, I think Mr. Zettel had some great ideas too in reaching out, make sure everybody's
Another great
compliant.
idea? How many
Full
can
of
you,
them.
how many can you have in 1 month?
He's full of them.
All right, we'll save it for next month. How's that? All right. All right.
You had also talked about bringing back the community per diems and per call pay and all that.
Yes, thank you.
Would that maybe wait until budget time?
We could do that. I'll take a look at that, and let's, I think I also have to do some committee assignments. We'll take a peek at the pay issue. If nothing else, we'll just put it on the table as an item for discussion, and then we can figure out if we can afford to do it. So,
Maybe election workers too, I don't, what are election workers getting
Did
for
we
help?
bump them
They're
up?
getting 15, and my chief is getting 16.
yeah, that needs to be updated. Well, I sent you that note. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, the next thing that I would love to hear is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion by Derek, what a surprise.
Second.
Second by Mark. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank